Okay, well, we can just talk to you, Franciele, if that's cool.
Yeah, that's totally okay.
Whole thing just to yourself. So it totally so interrupt as we go
Okay.
with questions. I mean, normally we would say, just kind of post questions in the chat if there are a lot of people, but feel free to just pipe in with any questions that you have. So you're currently renting and you've been there for 4 years, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so great. So you're like a prime candidate. You guys have been thinking about about buying a home for a little while and maybe what it would take.
Yeah. So we've been pretty much self-employed for the last, I don't know, we've been married 7 years. He's been he's been self-employed more like the 7 to 10 years that we've been together. And
Sure.
um we have sat down with a couple people and they've kind of given us a plan of action.
Hmm.
So I think we're just kind of making sure that what they've told us is correct,
Sure.
versus what options are out there, especially with all these changes going on.
Okay.
So and of course last year it's been obviously just crazy with unemployment and different things like that. So
Right.
just trying to get the resources that we need so that we could figure out if
Perfect.
buying is gonna work this time around or what.
Yeah. And what do you do? I forgot to ask. I'm sorry.
So right now I've been helping Brian do the wrestling side. So I'm like the secretary and treasurer of the company now.
Okay.
Previously I've been doing self-employed as well for the last 5 years. So I basically go into businesses, clean up their contacts, put in processes, and just really help them with like any marketing campaigns, email lists,
Got
things
it.
like that.
Got it.
Um, and then the last year I was helping someone actually locally, just kind of helped with admin and help him manage 6 different businesses. So that was a little bit different versus what I was kind of doing.
Okay.
A lot of startup businesses, because it's you go into all these networking events and that's kind of what happens. But yeah, so that's just kind of where we're at.
Perfect. No, that's good. And Mike will be able to talk to you more, right, Mike, about like being self-employed, when my husband and I bought our home, it was the same thing because we were in real estate and I had owned my own business for a
Okay.
couple of years. So same thing. Do you want to talk about it now, Mike, or you want to just kind of go through and
Yeah, I can kind of give you the rundown. In order to figure out if you're eligible for a loan, what you just do is at some point you need to get your tax returns, put together. And really when you're self-employed, what lenders do is they do a 2-year average of your income when you're self-employed. So if you have your 2019 and 2018 return, if you happen to have your 2020 done, that's even better. Because if you don't have your 2020 done, you'll still have to produce a profit and loss statement for 2020 anyway. So you might as well just get the tax return done
Okay.
because you're going to do all the work to get to put together a profit and loss statement for 2020. So you might as well just, do you have a tax preparer?
Yes.
That's the way to do it. Yep. Get that stuff submitted. And then once you have 2 years tax returns put together, then you can submit them to a lender like myself or whoever, and they can tell you if you're going to be eligible. Okay.
Okay. Got it.
We have another person, Naomi, who's joining. I'm going to admit
oh,
her.
good. Let's all be quiet and surprise her when she
I don't know
She's
where she
like, I'm
went.
out.
I admitted her, but I don't know where she went. I don't see her now.
She's in, I think.
Naomi, are you there?
Here we go. I see it. I see it. I see a little image. There we go. She's on mute right now, but hi, Naomi.
Hello, hello.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thank
Good.
you.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. We haven't started yet, so we were just about to. So you haven't missed anything really. We were just kind of
Sounds
doing general introductions.
sounds great. Thank you for that. Am I the only person that signed up for this, or there's more people
No,
gonna be?
you have Franciele is with us, and then there are 3 other people, but they haven't joined yet, and they might along the way, or maybe they've just been detained and can't make it tonight. So we're
Okay, that's
gonna
understandable.
move forward. And Mike, you're recording this, right?
Yes.
I was. Let's see if it is.
Should be.
It says recorded.
Yep, it's recording.
Okay. So cool. So Naomi, you can feel free, because there's only a couple of you, you can feel free to interrupt with questions along the way.
Okay,
or you can type them in the chat. It's up to you.
alrighty.
But we'll just move on forward. So first, again, thank you for joining us. So Naomi, are you also a renter currently? I'm guessing that's what.
Currently, yes, I'm a renter currently, and I'm actually leaving the rental I'm in now to another rental.
Okay.
So when I saw this webinar, I was like, man, I wish that this was like maybe a month ago or more
Yeah.
so back, because in the situation and my lease ends at the end of this month and I'm going to another location.
Gotcha.
So yeah.
Well, maybe there's a way if you find that we've given you some useful information, maybe you can look into getting a sublease or maybe, breaking it if your landlord is a nice person, understanding.
Mhm.
But see what information you find and hopefully.
Definitely, because our goal is, my family's goal is to go ahead and own a home, hopefully within 2 years. That's
Great.
our goal.
That's great. Okay. All right. Well, let's walk you guys through this. I don't want to, it's 6:15 and we've got till 7. So I want to just kind of move forward at a steady pace. So you guys are prime candidates for this webinar. And I know what we're going to find out is, is it even worth it? Can I do it? And I think you'll find that you can. That's the reason I wanted to host this webinar in the first place, is because I wish somebody had done this for me when I was, in my 20s or even my early 30s. I bought my first home with my husband when I was 35. And so, having an understanding would have been really helpful back in my younger days, and I had to learn sort of through trial and error. So, Mike, do you want to go to the next slide, to the agenda, and kind of review? So what we're going to talk about, first of all, I'll give you a little backstory on myself and the m.y.e.r.s team, and then I'll let Mike talk about and tell his tale, and then we'll go right into it. What are the pros and cons of renting versus owning? And then after that, I'll talk a little bit about what my job entails as your realtor. And then finally, we'll have like a little Q&A, but we can save it till the end, or like I said, we can just do it along the way. It's up to you guys. So Mike, you can go to the next slide. Perfect. So that's me. That's my husband, Nick. We were married in Chicago about 11 years ago now. And Nick started in real estate in 2008. It was the heart of the recession. Really perfect timing. So he had lost his job, and I too, on the same day, and we were kind of in this boat of what are we going to do? He decided to go into real estate because a couple of his friends wanted to buy homes, and he thought, that's something I can at least start with and then build a business as the market comes back over time. And then I ended up starting a business called Bottle of Bottega, which is one of those sipping and painting businesses, and started out of my car and kind of slowly built it up to a franchise through some good opportunities that I had. And then we decided, after I had 4 children, actually we decided after I had 3 children, and then the 4th came later, that the business was too much and that I should kind of sell that off and do form a partnership. And so that's what we did. I got my license in 2016 to sell real estate, and then we created the m.y.e.r.s team. And basically our sort of approach is friendly and direct, mixed with hard work. We like to work hard, but real estate can be kind of daunting and dry sometimes. So we like to make it as fun as possible. And then of course I'm a little competitive. So when it comes to negotiating, that's the part I really enjoy. I like getting a good deal for my clients, and but doing it with as much fun as possible. So I'm going to let Mike talk about it.
So I've been a mortgage lender for 24 years, and we represent like 25 different banks in the marketplace. We are what you call a mortgage broker or a mortgage banker. And so we place loans with whoever has the best rate and the best programs for you. I'm also local. I live in LaGrange, and I've been here since '98. And I too am married, and I have 3 kids, 1 in college and a couple of teenagers. And so life is very interesting and seems to move fast every day. It's really fun. was, so I think I heard some children in the background at one of those
Yeah, whose kids
households.
were they?
So my advice to you is just soak it all in, because I'm telling you, when you get my first one went off to college, I was so sad. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm getting old, darn it. So anyway, soak it in, even though it might be trying sometimes.
Yeah. My oldest is 8.5, so 8, 7, 5, and 3. So I'm a little ways away from that, but I dread the day. I can't even think about it. Although part of me kind of looks forward to it at the same time on some days. But anyway, I digress. Okay, so let's dive right in. So why buy versus rent? In broad strokes, basically, it's more expensive to rent over time. It's also, we'll show you the numbers in just a minute, but the numbers point to the fact that it's not necessarily cheaper to rent. It's also a hedge against inflation. So if you understand inflation to be kind of the general increase in prices over time and the fall in the value of your purchasing, the purchasing value of your money, right? So as a homeowner, you're protected. And then you may also be aware that mortgage rates are at an all-time low, right, this past year or so. So it makes it a really good time to buy. And of course, the rates have started to rise, but Mike will talk about that more in a moment. And then, of course, there are tax write-offs. So everyone's familiar with that term, right? As a homeowner, you're allowed to write off or deduct a lot of expenses. And that's money you don't have to pay taxes on, which saves you money each year. And then finally, as a homeowner, you're building equity. If you don't know exactly what that is, you'll come to understand it shortly. But the bottom line is that buying a house is going to help you build and increase your net worth. So rents are increasing faster than wages. If you guys take a look at the graph, you can see from 2009 to 2019, rents have steadily increased. In fact, average rents nationally have increased 3% year over year. And just a note, the national average rent in 2020 is about $1,725. In Chicago, it was $1,998 in July of 2019. And that's up $105 from 2018. So average rents have increased 36% or $390, and they've grown faster than median home prices and median income. So essentially your rent is increasing, but your income isn't keeping pace. Now, of course, why is this significant? Because if you're a homeowner, you've taken out a loan to purchase a property, and that loan is being repaid over time at a fixed rate. So your monthly mortgage payment doesn't change. This is how homeownership serves as a hedge against inflation. Mike, do you have anything to add?
No, I think that's perfect, actually.
Okay.
Yep.
Cool. So here we go. So mortgage rates are historically low. Mike, actually, do you want to take this one?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So we're going to go right to this graph. You know what? Maybe I need to shrink that. So this is a graph of interest rates back to 1975. But let me just skip past all this. You can obviously see the rates going down. Here's really what you want to know. Despite what you see there in the 80s, where interest rates were up in the high teens, even taking out that peak and the valleys where you see it at its lowest, the norm for about 80 years is interest rates between 7.5% and 8.5%, right in here. This little spot where you see, just take a look at the 9%, somewhere right below that. This is just one little slice of time, right, from 1975 on. But if you go back 80 years before that, the norm averages out to about 7.5% to 8.5%. In fact, that's what it was when I got in the business in 96, I think is when it was. So around 8, yeah, right around there. There you go. In fact, we hit 9 evidently that year. So what I'm saying is that we are spoiled with interest rates the way they are right now. And the fact that they were just below 3%, now we're right about 3% or just a hair over. My point is that your buying power for a home it's never been greater because the interest rates are so low. So that's how important that is. And that's also why there is a big frenzy to buy property right now. Because interest rates are so low, there's a ton of people who can afford homes because interest rates are so low. Any questions on the interest rates? Cool.
Cool. Mike, you're on a roll. Do you want to take the next one?
Yep. Tax write-offs. Excuse me. So when you own, the government says, well, we want to incent people to own. And how are we going to do it? Well, we're going to do it by letting you add up all the interest that you pay on your mortgage. And then we're going to let you add up all the property taxes that you pay on your home. And we're going to let you add up all of the state taxes that you pay. And we're going to sum it up. And then we're going to let you reduce your taxable income by that amount. So Francielli, you are self-employed, as you mentioned. You probably know about write-offs, right? Because you get to itemize all these expenses, right? So you show an income level of whatever, and then you have all these great expenses, and then your net is the difference. Well, when you own, the government says we want to incent people to own. So you get to do a similar thing, which is you reduce your taxable income by the interest you pay and your property taxes and your income taxes. So this is an example of adding up so this is a scenario of $235,000 house. And Stephanie, why'd you pick that number?
Because that's the average median cost of a home nationally.
Yep.
Right?
And so I took today's rate of 3 1/8% and calculated the interest of that. It's $7,344. And then we said, okay, well, what does the government give you as a standard deduction if you don't itemize your taxes? And they give you they let you quote unquote write off $12,400, which is great. But then the government says you can add up all of your state taxes and your property taxes as well. So when you add these things up, it comes to $17,344. This is just one example, and everybody's going to be slightly different based on your income bracket and how much your interest is. But on this example, what you're comparing is the government would normally give you a standard deduction as a renter of $12,400, meaning you reduce your taxable income by $12,400 just because. And if you own a property that's worth $235,000, you're going to reduce your taxable income by $17,344. Clearly that's better than $12,000, right? And the difference is $4,944. And then you multiply that by your tax bracket. And by the way, this is only a 20% tax bracket.
Conservative.
You may be 21, 25%. You might be 28% or even 35%. I have no idea what your income is. So this is a very, very low conservative number. What that means is that it saves you $1,000 a year to own versus rent, just in this category of what we call tax savings or tax write-offs.
Right.
By the way, disclaimer at the bottom, I'm not a tax professional, but I've owned a home for a long time, and I've been doing this for a long time, and I know how all the numbers work because I study people's tax returns when they send them to me for to buy a home. So I understand how all the math works, but I'm definitely not a certified public accountant or anything.
Cool.
Building equity. Do you want to take this or do you want me to?
You can go ahead. You're doing great.
All right, let's do it. So the fourth item for why renting isn't quite as financially beneficial as buying is because you're going to build equity. What does that mean? This is what it means. Following Stephanie's example of a $235,000 house, which is the average median sale price of a home. And let's say you put 3% down, which is the least amount of money you can put down right now. That means you'd be financing $227,000. We'll just call it $228,000. So that's a $7,000 down payment, right? So if your home starts out, I don't know if you can see my cursor moving around, but if your home starts out with a value of $235,000 and your loan starts out at $227,000, and then as you pay down your mortgage and make your payments every month, 10 years later, you only owe $174, not $227. And 10 years later, if you had an appreciated value of your home of 2% every year, which, by the way, Stephanie, what is the national average? It's usually like 3 something. In fact, I think actually it's even more than 3%.
Yeah, it's usually 3. Yeah, it's a little more than 3%. But again, I wanted to be conservative with the numbers, just because I think it's better to err on the side of conservative.
So even just using a 2% appreciation, which is really conservative. In fact, if you look up, I'm not going to remember his name, Robert. He's a professor at Yale. Anyway, he's got all this great data online, and he actually proves that home values over the last 100 years have gone up by like I want to say the number was 4 point something percent. It's I'll think of his name in a minute. We'll talk about it. But if you want to look up data about that, there's obviously no way that Stephanie or I can, guarantee you're going to get some kind of an appreciation. But I'll tell you this, if you just look at the data, you'll see that home values go up over time. Do they go up and down at the same time? Yeah, while they're going up, they're going down and up and down and up, right? If we use 2% appreciation, in 10 years, that same house is worth $286,000. And then you skip to 20 years, your loan balance is now down to 100,000, not just 174. And your home value is now worth 349,000. And then all of a sudden you skip to year 30, your loan balance is paid off. And your home value went up to 425,000. The spread between there is called your equity. And that's your money. And that's your net worth. And why give that to a landlord when you can keep that for yourself?
Yeah. And that's
the
money
beauty
you
of
can use. That's money you can borrow against. That's, that it's your money. Anything to add, Mike?
Nope, that's good.
Okay.
Any questions on that?
Okay, cool. All right, so a little recap, the pros and the cons of renting versus buying. So, here again are some of the pros. For renting, the payments may be lower. This can certainly be true if you're renting an apartment. It may also be the case when you're renting a house, and especially if you have a roommate or two. Remember those days. And repairs aren't your responsibility. The property owner has to pay for that leaky faucet or anything else that breaks or wears out. So you don't have to factor in those unplanned expenses into your budget. Flexibility, if you want to relocate, sorry, let me turn off my phone. Sorry about that. If you want to relocate, having a mortgage can make that difficult, and a house can take much longer to sell than you'd like. But if you rent, once your lease is up, you're done. And then upfront costs, except for, a security deposit which is often the first month's rent and last month's rent, you don't have to write a big check or finance costs that you would otherwise have to in order to get a mortgage. But here are some of the pros of being a homeowner. You can see that it's a good long-term investment. Owning a home, it's a solid investment. While a home is a large purchase, it also provides a much better return on investment than, say, a car, for example. I'm sure most of you know that, when you purchase a car, it depreciates as soon as you drive it off the lot, right? But owning a home provides the opposite. As Mike was saying before, real estate generally appreciates over time, depending on the local market conditions. And so it's over time a really solid investment. And obviously, as your real estate agent, helping you buy a home, I can't predict exactly what'll happen with home values in the area that you choose, but I can certainly provide some information on the history of those values and how things are evolving in that area. And if it's an upward trend, then typically it's a place that you can comfortably move into with a sense of security. And then building equity, of course, we talked about this. You hear it's the equity that he just talked about in real estate. It's the probable market value of the home minus any liens or, for example, a mortgage against the property. And you build that equity over time, and that's your money that you can borrow against. And then there are federal tax benefits, which he already, Mike talked about. And then you've got your stable monthly mortgage payments. So I touched on this a little bit before. So when you borrow money from the lender at a fixed rate, that rate doesn't change over the life of the loan. And it helps you create a predictable monthly budget. And it's also, again, your hedge against inflation. And finally, I think this is really important. It helps you build your credit. There are many factors that impact a person's credit score. One of the most important being the length of credit history, right? And a great tip for improving a credit score is to actually improve the average length of credit accounts, and owning a home can accomplish this. Since the length of a mortgage is typically 15 to 30 years, having a mortgage on your credit history is a great way to lengthen the average of your credit accounts.
Can I tag in on that?
Yeah, I was going to say, jump in, Mike.
Yeah. So low, you know what, you mentioned low maintenance and fewer responsibilities. Here's another, I think, important thing. You'd mentioned that when you're a renter, you're not obligated to fix the property and keep it up. And it's true. As a homeowner, you will be obligated to obviously maintain things and fix things. Sorry, my dogs are barking.
Right.
But here's the other thing.
Literally this time, right?
Yeah, my dogs are literally barking. But here's the reality. I have been a landlord for many years, and I raise the rent every year, 3%. Sometimes I had to lower the rent depending on the market at the time. Well, I will tell you this, as my costs went up, I raised my rent. You are paying the cost of maintenance. You're just not paying it in the form of, okay, a maintenance person came in and I have to pay $2,000 for a new hot water heater.
Right.
You're not doing that, of course, but I assure you that as a landlord, your landlord's passing on the cost of all those expenses to you. So you're paying it anyway. You're just not paying it in chunks. You're paying it over a period of a year. So I think that's an important piece. I would rather have that money myself and, rather than give it to that landlord,
For sure.
Either way, you're going to have to maintain the property.
Cool. Okay. So then also you get greater freedom, right? A huge benefit of owning a home is the ability and the freedom to make changes that you want. So whether it's something as simple as painting a bedroom or as complex as, doing a kitchen remodel, when you own a home, you can make those changes. And oftentimes as a tenant, the landlord, it's written into the lease, you can't touch a thing and so you can't really make it your own. So it's a lovely feeling to be able to kind of make these types of improvements. And there are really a lot of budget friendly home improvements that you can make that would add value to your home. And there are also projects that cost, thousands of dollars. But either way, owning the home gives you the freedom to do that. And then of course I didn't mention this in the bullet points, but there's the pride of ownership. Owning a home provides buyers with a sense of pride in their home and your community. And I know as soon as I moved in here, that was a huge piece for me that I hadn't been expecting. And then you develop relationships with the people that you live with and near, and start getting involved in the community. So that to me is a huge plus. So the cons again, we can't change the property for renting. You aren't building value. When you leave your rental, all you're taking with you is yourself and your movable property that belongs to you. The rest is the owner's equity that grows and not yours. And your rent may increase. You might be comfortable with what you're paying each month, but that could change when your lease comes up for renewal in 6 months or a year. And then your credit score improvement. While you're paying a mortgage on time, that improves your credit worthiness, but you don't get that benefit when you're paying rent. And then of course the cosmetic improvements. If your home looks dated, you may just have to get used to it. So again, there are also no tax incentives or deductions for renters. Now the cons of owning a home, there are high upfront costs. There are closing costs on a mortgage, which can run from 2% to 5% of the purchase price, Mike, would you say?
Yep, I would say it's about 2 to 3, maybe 4.
Okay. And then that includes fees and property taxes. There's mortgage insurance, home inspection, first year homeowners insurance premium, et cetera. There's also less mobility. So one of the advantages of home ownership is stability, but obviously that means it makes picking up and moving a little bit more difficult. There are also maintenance costs. So there's no landlord to take care of plumbing problems. And if the AC goes out, then you're the one sweating it until it's fixed. And then property values can also fall. That happened during the 2008 housing crisis. And we've been slowly climbing back up, and we're basically above where we were at that point now. So, and local conditions can cause this too. And then illiquidity. Mike, I thought I'd leave you to discuss illiquidity a little bit better.
So, when you're buying a place, you do have all this, you need to have a down payment, and you put that money into the house as your down payment. If you let's say, and you'll see in an example coming up, we used an example of a down payment of $7,000. So you use that as your down payment. You can't just tap into that like you would if it was sitting in your savings account. So for a rainy day, you could just go into your savings account and use the $7,000 for something that you need to take care of. once you use it as down payment on your home, it's illiquid. You can't just tap into it. Now, can you go and get a loan against the equity in your home? Yes. If you only have $7,000 worth of equity in your home, no, you can't. You need more equity than that before a lender will give you access to the equity. So what it means is that you just can't tap into that money. Once you use it as down payment, you're not getting it back till you sell the property or until you build a lot more equity. And then you can tap into some of that.
Okay, cool. All right, so let's look at the costs. So when you rent, you're paying, again, monthly rent, your security deposit, utilities, renter's insurance, frequent moving costs, and on average move, I don't know how long you guys have been in your properties, but Naomi, you were talking about the fact that you're already moving. How long were you in your property before you moved?
3 years. And
Okay,
then, so like I was going back and forth or thinking of, looking for a home and maybe just purchasing because we had like enough down, like for the down payment and
Right.
then enough for the closing costs.
right,
But time snuck up on us with, we have to move by the end of the month or at least ends
right.
at that time. So I'm like, well, here we go again.
So you have
No.
another year on your current lease?
We'll have another year with our new lease in
Okay.
April.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But so you're the ideal statistic here. I mean, the average move is every 3 years, and whether you move yourself, I mean, there's costs involved, and the national average is around
Mhm.
$3,000 per move. So if you move
Exactly.
every 3 years, that's $9,000 that you've just shelled out.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And
yeah.
yeah.
So then owning, you've got your monthly mortgage payments, your down payment, of course, which is a one-time cost, your closing costs, which are also a one-time cost, utilities, homeowners insurance, and real estate property taxes, as well as your general maintenance of the property over time. Okay, so let's do the math. So even with all the benefits of homeownership explained, of particular concern is the down payment and the initial costs. And this can be a major financial hurdle. Naomi, that's great that you've got that money already there. But there's a misconception that buyers need a 20% of the home price for a down payment. You can do as little as 3%, which can be a much more feasible option. Mike, do you want to talk a little bit about what your
Yeah.
average down
Yeah,
payments are?
you can actually get away with as little as 3% down to buy property. You definitely do not need 20% down to buy property. In fact, the government wants it to be that way because they want to incent people to buy houses. And because of that, there is all kinds of first-time buyer programs and low down payment options because a healthy real estate economy and a healthy amount of home ownership is good for the economy. So the government wants to see people buy houses. So they offer products, loans with very little down.
All right, so in this example that you see on the screen, I've taken the median US home sale price, 235 again, with a 3% down payment. And national average monthly rent is about 1725, according to Zillow research from 2020 in November. So you can see the initial cost for the purchase is 14,100 versus 5175, and that 5175 also takes into account it's first and last month's rent, plus. So if you look at the monthly cost, the mortgage with the principal, interest, and mortgage insurance and property taxes, the actual monthly payment is $1,699 versus $1,755 for this particular example, because I added in just to kind of, give some people have renter's insurance, some people don't. So it's, 1725 without renter's insurance or 1755, but still you can see the difference. The monthly cost is actually more affordable to own than it is to rent. And that, doesn't even account for your building equity, the tax savings on the mortgage interest, and the appreciation rate of your home's value. So with all of those factors combined, buying a house is a better deal within just a few years. All right, so Mike, do you want to jump in here? You can break it down.
Yeah, so here's just the monthly cost comparison, right? So using the national average of rent of 1725, and then renter's insurance. And by the way, it's a good idea to have that renter's insurance. Anyway, so add that $30 in there, and so your total is 1755. compared to the payment on this property, right? So you finance 220, we'll call it 228 grand. The mortgage itself is only $976, but then you still have to add in this. What is this? PMI, mortgage insurance, also called PMI, which stands for private mortgage insurance, is $180. Now that varies, right? It depends on your credit score and how much money you put down, etc. But that's part of your monthly payment, and you're paying it because you don't have 20% down. In fact, before the advent of this, you did have to have 20% down. There was a time when you couldn't get a home loan unless you had 20% down. And then the advent of private mortgage insurance allowed people to buy homes with less than 20% down, which therefore bolstered the economy. But it just adds to your monthly payment, right? Not a big deal. It's just part of the payment you factored into your budget. And then property taxes, of course, and then homeowners insurance. Total $16.99. So these are not like this is
Unreal.
not fuzzy math. This is real numbers. Like that's, in fact, your homeowner's insurance probably won't even be that much. We were trying to be super conservative to give you a kind of a worst case scenario picture of what housing might be. So
All right. Well, Mike, you're doing great. You want to keep
you want me to keep rolling?
Yes.
So the difference in the monthly payment, as you can see, is only $56, which doesn't seem like much. You're like, oh, it's only $56. You're right. It is only $56, except that over the history of owning this, actually, in this case, it's just a 5-year review. You actually come out ahead by 60 grand. Do you remember this graph? It shows that your loan balance is going down and your value is going up. And again, if you just take a little slice of 5 years instead of 10 years and you do the math, it's about 60 grand. So if you only live in your house for 5 years, you still make money. You're still building net worth. I'd rather have that 60 grand than not. I'd rather have it than give it to a landlord. So if you take a look at this graph here, what this is explaining is, hold on one second. Thanks. It was getting loud in here. I've got like 3 kids and my wife and the dogs and my niece and all these people are all over here. And I'm like, sorry, you gotta keep it down. So your yearly payments over time. So do you notice that the blue is your monthly payment and the red is your rent, and rent goes up over time. But notice this, the rent is slightly more than this payment, just like this comparison right there, right? But why did it all of a sudden drop off right here? Why did the payment go down? Well, it's because it's factoring in this piece right here, mortgage insurance. That's temporary. You're only going to pay that until you truly build 20% equity in your home, and then it's going to go away. So your payment just got better by $180 a month in this example.
And
It's
what's the
beautiful.
average after what, 5 to 7 years you usually pay off the insurance portion?
Yeah, I think it just, real estate is so local. Like some communities appreciate faster than others, and it depends on if it's a gentrifying neighborhood versus one that's not, et cetera. But I would say it's probably 5 years-ish, maybe 10. And, if someone's starting with only 3% down versus someone starting with 5 or 10% down, clearly someone with 3% down, they're going to have to pay PMI longer, right, before they get to 20% equity. So this is showing you that around year 6 or I think that's around year 7, the PMI drops off because you have 20% equity, right? So now your payment's lower and it's a fixed payment, not unlike your rent, which is going up a little bit each year. Your fixed payment continues across. And then after year 30, you don't have one anymore. And yet if you are renting, you're still paying it. Is there anything else you wanted to add to that, Stephanie?
No, you
Okay,
covered
cool.
that.
Any questions about this graph? Okay, cool. You guys are too easy on me. Give me a tough question. Come on here. I'm ready. Let's do this. Okay, so then the 5-year cost comparison. So let's take a look at rent. You have a security deposit, $3,400. That's usually the first and the last month's rent. And then you add up all of the rent over the next 5 years, and notice it's going up because we're assuming a 3% increase. So your total rent paid over that 5-year period plus your security deposit is 115 grand. Now let's look at what it's going to cost you to buy a home. That same example. This is a $235,000 home because that's the national, the average cost. Obviously, it will change a little bit depending on what your price range is.
Right.
But 3% down is $7,000, $7,050. Closing costs, when we did the formula, it's just coincidental, happens to be about $7,050. In fact, depending on where you buy, it could actually be less because some cities have a tax when you buy in a certain, it's like city of Chicago and Evanston and Oak Park and all these other, some of them have taxes when you buy there and some do not. Like LaGrange area where we live does not have a tax. So it would actually be slightly lower around here. So, but to be conservative, this is higher than what it will probably be. So we're trying to be conservative and not like make these numbers look too flowery. That's not the intent. So add up your down payment, $7,000, your closing costs $7,000, and then 5-year cost of the payments, right? So we just multiply that out by 5 years. And then we subtracted out the tax savings. This is like, and again, this is dependent on your income tax bracket, et cetera. And when you do the math and you subtract out your tax benefits, and honestly, I think that's a low tax savings. I think they're greater than that, but that's okay. Your total payouts are $104,000 compared to $115,000. Part of that, and then it kind of gives you a breakdown of where this is coming from and what's going on. So your home appreciates by $24,000 over 5 years. You paid your loan balance down by $31,000 over 5 years, and add those up, and you've got about 67. What else was in there? There might be one other thing in there because those two together aren't $67,000. Around 5 years. Oh, this deduction, the fact that the tax deduction has to get factored in there too. Yeah. So in any case, I mean, for me, if it's even break even, I'd rather own it than pay a landlord and not be able to fix it up the way I want or do what I want with the property, etc. Any questions on these slides? Okay.
All right, great. Okay, so this is just a general recap. So I just like this side because I think it's cute. The happiness, the feeling of owning your home, I think is unmatched. The day I signed the documents and got the keys in my hand, it was glorious. Not to mention painting my living room and putting my own TV on the wall when I want, getting a dog, putting a fence in my yard, that kind of thing. There's obvious, tax savings involved. You get rewarded as a homeowner by the government, and appreciation. Again, home values have a well-documented history of going up over time, and that increase becomes equity you can benefit from. Again, the equity. If you were paying $1,000 per month for 10 years to rent, you'd wind up spending $120,000 that you'd never get back. However, homeowners who pay the same amount would have nearly $120,000 worth of built up equity in their home. And then you get to put down roots. People who own rather than rent tend to stay in their homes 4 times longer. And you get to know your neighbors and connect with the community. And this I thought was interesting. Education. Research shows that children of homeowners earn higher test scores and graduate at a higher percentage than those of renters. And I didn't even realize that as I was researching. So I thought it was interesting. So there you go. I think in my opinion, owning a home is much more beneficial than renting. But I'm going to let Mike now kind of take you through the actual roadmap of buying.
So these are the steps if you decide that it's the right thing for you. And by the way, the first thing you do is you get pre-approved, and that just means you have a conversation with your mortgage company, your mortgage lender. So whether that's me or your local bank, I would hope it would be me because I would love to serve you. But
can I just with that actually real quick?
Yeah.
As a realtor, I've dealt with people who've gone to Chase, for example, for for a loan versus Mike or other lenders that I'm familiar with, and the difference is night and day. They don't give you, they don't know you, and there's no sort of personal connection. And I sat at the closing table waiting for wires to come through from Chase, and they just didn't do it. So we had to do what they call a dry closing, and the money had to get wired the next day. I've never had that problem when people work with Mike or other lenders that I have a more personal connection to. They're just more on it. And you really want someone who has that reputation, who's reliable, because there are many, many pieces to the puzzle along the way. And if your lender is not on it, you can blow the whole deal. That's my 2 cents.
Thank you. um, we're gonna talk about in the process of getting pre-approved. We talk about 3 things: income, assets, and credit. All 3 of those things are really important, and that's what underwriters look for. Um, if you don't have perfect credit, there are options, and I can point you in the right direction for places that can help you fix and tweak your credit. If it's minor credit issues, I can actually give you advice on what to do to fix it. But uh, if your credit's pretty rough, for example, then I might refer you out to a credit restoration company because they specialize in fixing things like that. But income, assets, meaning savings, and debt, and credit, those are the 3 things that they look for when you go to get pre-approved. We'll dig into, we can dig into that kind of stuff offline about private scenarios at some point if you wish to. The second step in the process is you make your offer. So first you get pre-approved, and that process means you will know in that pre-approval process exactly what your monthly payment would be. You will know exactly how much cash you will need to make a down payment and closing costs. There will not be any ambiguity. You'll know exactly what you're getting into, and you're going to get advice from me about whether or not it's the right thing for you or it's not. Because if I don't think it's the right thing for you, I'm going to tell you honestly, hey, look, you might want to think about doing this or this instead. Or maybe I give you a roadmap on being prepared to buy a place in 6 months from now or a year from now. I will never, ever steer you in a direction where it's not the right thing for you, because in the long run, it will come back to hurt you and me, and it's not a good idea. So in any case, when you are done being pre-approved, I promise you, you will be able to take step 2, which is to make an offer on a property, and you will be able to do it with 100% confidence that it's the right thing for you and your family.
And I'll say, as a realtor these days, you will not be able to make an offer without that pre-approval letter in hand. The sellers and the seller's agent, they want to know that you've already spoken to a lender before they even entertain your offer.
And in today's market, those listing agents are calling me as the lender, and they're asking me how strong of a buyer you are, because they're comparing it with other offers that are on the table. And the best offer with the most secure, solid financing with the best team of realtor, attorney, and lender is the one that the seller's going to pick, because they want the most assurances they can possibly get that they're going to be able to sell their house on time and smoothly. So yeah, the pre-approval is really important. When you make your offer, again, you'll know it's the right thing for you because you've already gone through all the calculations. So making your offer and writing an offer, you sit with your realtor and you basically decide what's the appropriate price range for the property. And so that's where Stephanie's specialty kicks in right there, is on step 2.
Yeah. And I won't even look, you talk to a lender, you get that pre-approval, so you know what your maximum comfort level is, what's the most you can spend and not be house poor. And that way I show you homes that are within that budget, because I don't want you to overextend. It doesn't serve, as Mike said, it doesn't serve you well, and it doesn't serve me well.
I call them guardrails, Stephanie, and I think you might have heard me use that term. Is that when I do that pre-approval, I ask people, this is the very question I ask, and I challenge you both or anybody that's thinking about it. How much of a monthly payment do you feel like you can afford monthly comfortably and can still save for retirement?
Right.
That's the thing. Because if you can say that I can save for retirement and afford this home, you're good. If you don't think you're going to be able to save for retirement along the way, you might want to rethink about it and think about maybe I need to pick a budget or a price range that's more appropriate so that I can. Yeah, it's really important. Again, we are never going to steer you into something that doesn't make financial sense for you or your family. Okay, step 3 is the home inspection and appraisal. I call this the protection phase. The moment you write your offer, Stephanie can set you up with a good home inspection company, or if you want to find one on your own, you can.
Yeah.
And you are going to have somebody you're going to go with a home inspector to this place and really pour over the property and look at all of the, the possible flaws with the property. And I want you to know, you're going to uncover 38 issues with the property. That's the way it is. I mean, my own honeydew list on my house is like a mile long.
Ours
Those
was 80 pages on my house, and I wanted it
eight-
anyway. 80.
80.
0.
So, we have old real estate here, and there's going to be things that have to be done. However, when they are major items, that's when your inspector is going to highlight those. Those are the things that affect the market value. The little ticky-tack things that don't affect market value, they'll highlight those. They'll put them in the report, but they're not going to like have a discussion about it with you because those don't affect market value. Every house has that stuff. So that's your home inspection, and it protects you from buying a lemon. And then we do an appraisal, the lender, and we will make sure you do not overpay, because if you do, we're going to tell you, and then you can go back and renegotiate with the seller or walk away and get your money back. So that's the appraisal and the inspection.
Yeah, you're protected, and during that it's called the attorney inspection period. It's the first 5 business days after you've signed the contract. You've agreed on the price with the seller. You have 5 business days to conduct that inspection and figure out if this is the home you want. And we can also, if the inspection turns up items that are potential deal breakers, you can request credits from the seller that they'll basically say, give you money. It's going to cost, either they'll fix the problem themselves and they'll show you proof that it was fixed, or they'll offer you money to have it done yourself. So you actually get money back on the agreed to price at the closing table, or you can just walk away.
And then step number 4 is the attorney review. So any of those issues that come up in the inspection, your attorney helps you go back to the seller's attorney and negotiate those things out. Then we move into underwriting, which is submitting your paperwork to the human who's going to review all of your pay stubs and bank statements and tax returns. And they typically have questions. So once you answer all of their questions, then we move into step 6, which is finalize homeowner's insurance. And once we finalize all the little details, then we will get a cleared close from the underwriter. Francielli had to run. She sent me a private message here that she had to run.
Okay.
I think she's gonna reach out to us. So clear to close is an important milestone. Once the underwriter gives us that clear to close, step 8, 9, and 10 are all about the closing. So we contact your attorney and say, okay, we have the clear to close on the loan. Let's go ahead and schedule it. So your attorney will schedule the closing. And on the day of your closing, this is what it looks like. You wake up, you go and look at the property and do a final inspection. And you just want to see if it's in the same condition as it was the last time you saw it. And then right after your final walkthrough, you're going to go to the closing itself. And closings are a little different right now because of the pandemic. You might actually go to this office building called the title company, and you might just be there by yourself. And then your attorney is typically on the phone right now with you. And they walk you through each document that you're signing, but they do it over the phone. In some situations, the attorneys are showing up and sitting with you in person like they used to do. But a lot of times that's not happening right now. So in any case, a closing is when you sign all of your final documents. And when you're done signing them, you get to move in. That's step 10. Starting the process of a pre-approval is you fill out an application online. Then you get an approval. You can literally print your approval right there online. Now, if you're self-employed, you won't be able to print your approval until you submit tax returns. But if you're salaried, you can actually print a pre-approval letter right there on the spot. You can also get a loan estimate of all of your cash to close. This is an important component. I want you to know all of your costs in getting a loan and buying the house, including the down payment, so that you're totally prepared. Then you will get a to-do list of items you're going to need, like paycheck stubs, bank statements, tax returns, W-2s, things like that. You'll be able to log in anytime you want, 24/7, just to see the status of where your loan is. Is it in underwriting? Do we have the appraisal back yet, etc. And then when everything is done, obviously you close and get the keys. Credit score. So credit scores, as you can see, have this rating system. Really, what it means is this: if you've got good credit, people fall into this category, especially first-time buyers. You have good credit and no down payment. You have good credit and you have down payment, or you don't have good credit which is not, I skipped to number 4. You just don't have good credit.
Yeah.
And number 3 is you're not sure if your income is enough to qualify. Those are important things, right? If you don't have down payment, you're going to need to save a little bit, and I can walk you through a roadmap on saving enough so that you can buy a place. And it depends on your situation. It depends on what you want, where you want to be in terms of a price range. So how much you save versus how much someone else saves could be very, very different. But that's okay. Good credit, no down payment. That's just a simple roadmap. Good credit, and you have down payment, you're ready to go. Assuming your income is enough, you can qualify right away. Not sure if your income is enough, number 3. So that's an important piece, right? So we're going to look at your base salary with your job. And if you're self-employed, we do a 2-year average of that income. And then if you don't have good credit, then once again, I can give you a roadmap, and I can put you in touch with places that can help you fix that credit. And I have a client, I'm really proud of her right now. She's under contract. She's buying a place. She spent probably about 8 months fixing credit, and she's buying a place. I had another customer that spent 2 years buying a place or fixing his credit. This guy carried 2 jobs to pay off bad debts and stuff that he had kind of messed up on. And he spent 2 years fixing his credit. And then he just bought a place. He closed on it. Must have been 4 months now. I'm really proud of him. He did an awesome job, and he worked his fanny off, and he got to a good point, and he and his wife are now homeowners. So that's pretty exciting. So there's a roadmap. Some might be a 2-year roadmap, and some might be 3 months or 6 months.
Yeah. I've done that with a client of mine too. For 6 months, it took her actually 6.5 months. The first time we started looking, and we realized that she talked to a lender, and she had some credit issues, and she worked for 6.5 months to get it together. And now she's been in her house now for 2 years.
That's awesome. I
Yeah.
love those stories.
Right.
It can be done. You just got to start somewhere, know where you're at, and then work a plan, work your plan. This is you, Stephanie.
Yeah, so this is basically what do I do. So when you're ready to think about buying a home, this is how we will work together. So, and I'll set up a search for you. We use Zenlist with App Properties, which is a great app. You can access it on your phone and on your computer. And it's basically gives you access to all the homes that are on the MLS, like any other, Realtor.com, Redfin app, whatever. But it also gives you access to homes that aren't yet on the public network, on the MLS, the multiple listing service. There are homes that are on the private listing network. So those are homes that are coming to market soon. And those are the ones that you want access to, because not everybody knows about them yet, and you can scoop them up before they are known by the public at large. So through that app, we can communicate. You can mark your favorites, and I can set up tours for you when you find homes that you're interested in, and take you out on those tours. When you find the home that you really like, I'm going to do a market analysis on that home and make sure and compare the price to other homes that have sold in the area that are similar to that house. So I make sure that you're not overpaying. It helps us determine what price to come in with our initial offer. We'll submit that offer and negotiate the contract. And then, of course, after we negotiate the contract, I'll help you facilitate the inspection. I'm basically a resource to you. I have inspectors, attorneys, lenders, obviously, and even after the closing, I like to be a resource to my clients for electricians or contractors or plumbers, you name it. As a realtor, I have access. And if I don't have one personally, I have 1,200 other agents with App Properties who have access to somebody that's reliable and quality. And then, post inspection, I'll help you negotiate along with the attorney any additional items and facilitate the final walkthrough. And then my favorite part is handing over the keys.
I missed it. What was your favorite part, did you say?
Handing over the keys.
Yeah. Got it.
The best.
Cool.
I have pictures with everyone that I've ever sold, and I love it.
That's awesome.
It's
Such a good feeling.
It is. It's an awesome moment. So things to remember when you're looking for a house. You need to know what you want, what you need, the number of bedrooms, bathrooms, what location you need to live in. Is it close to transportation, et cetera? What are your must-haves? Do you absolutely need a yard? You absolutely need a basement, that sort of thing. So I can set up a proper search for you and narrow your choices down. You want to make sure you're not overpaying, and that's my job and Mike's job. I'm going to find out if the property's worth it. And then Mike's going to help you find out if you can actually afford it. And then you want to make sure to avoid any costly surprises, and that's where a good and quality inspector and appraiser come in, and you'll get those from myself and Mike. And then you want to work with a good agent. I mean, hopefully somebody that you feel you have a good rapport with. If it's not me, that's fine, obviously. But it's, it needs to be somebody that you feel comfortable with, that you can have fun with, but that you trust and you feel is working in your best interest. And that's what this fiduciary duty is. It's my job, my duty to you as a client, that I put your interest above anyone else's, including my own. And then the commission. So how do I get paid when I'm working with a buyer? You don't pay me anything. I actually get paid from the commission that the seller is paying to their agent. And that agent, the seller's agent, and myself split the commission. So I don't actually get paid until we sign and hand over the keys to you. And that is it. Do you have any questions, Naomi? You're on mute right now, so there you go.
Yeah, there we go. No, there you go. What you guys both went over was very clear and concise. I do appreciate the time that you guys took to gather this meeting and put it out there for people to gain more knowledge this way.
Thank you. If you have any questions at all, just, call or text anytime. I know you just started renting, but I mean, I've had clients for a couple years before they've started actually the home search process. So if you want, I'm happy to help you set up a search for the areas that you want to be in, and you can kind of take your time and we'll help narrow things down.
I know where I'm at this point, where my husband and I, salary wise, we can get a house salary wise, but like everything factors in, it's in our credit that we have to fix over. That's where our crossroads are at right now,
Well,
and building that.
Right. Well, then maybe it's a good time for you to speak to somebody like Mike, who can kind of help you
Get that roadmap going. Yeah. So I do know that I do have someone I've been working with since September, working with my credit, certain things like, I don't know, deletions or removals or something like that, basically, that he assists me with. My husband's more like in the place that he feels that it's too much that he can be able to pay off over a short amount of time. Then maybe he has to go to chapter 13 is it called for big. So I'm like, I'm not sure if he does that, is that going to hurt us more of a chance, or do I just have to put my name on when I'm purchasing a home? Is it just going to be me because my history is better than his?
Right.
And that, you know what I mean?
Yeah, Michael, he'll speak to that.
Yeah. So if you have a Chapter 13 bankruptcy on your credit record, there is a waiting period before you're eligible for a mortgage. That's an industry thing. So if you can avoid it, it's great. If you can't, then yes, you can do it in just your name.
What's the waiting period?
Yeah.
If it's a chapter 13 is different than 7. I think it's 2 years. Give me a second and I'll pull it up.
I'm not even sure of the differences. All I know, my husband's saying, like, I think I need to do bankruptcy, but we don't even know where to start. All I know is like mine's better, but I keep hearing he does bankruptcy. It could be like 2 years. I'm like, okay, I guess we have to wait 2 years. And then, or maybe if I just buy the house under my name and go with what my solely, but I keep hearing it's best if we do both as a couple because that's we're married. Like, I keep hearing a lot of things, and I'm like, I rather know before I dip my feet in there. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
The answer is it's 2 years from the discharge date of the Chapter 13, or if it wasn't discharged and it was dismissed, that's considered it's not as good, and it's a 4-year wait. So you want a discharge, and then it's a 2-year wait from the date of the discharge of a Chapter 13.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And
So
where would even someone begin to go ahead and do that process if it's in his case? Like, I don't even know. You have Peter Geraci that I remember hearing since I was a kid. He's been then been going on for that long. But
Sure.
other than that, I don't know any other people in other place.
Do you have a recommendation for anything like that? Or I mean, can you speak to somebody, maybe have a conversation with Mike? Is there a way for him to avoid that at all? Like, could you assess his financial situation and try and maybe help him avoid that process?
Yeah, I mean, I can look at the finances. Usually a chapter 13 is one where it's a restructure where you're making payments,
Mhm.
and I think it's, you're doing that because you're unable to meet the payment requirement. You're unable to meet the monthly obligations as they
Mhm.
are right now.
Yeah.
So the chapter 13 basically restructures the debt and gives you a payment plan. And I can adjust that. I mean, really, I can just, if you have me pull credit or if you send me credit, we can talk through that. I mean,
In all honesty, I don't know what his history is. Like, I know it's not the best,
Yeah.
but compared to me, I think I'm better. But I don't go ahead
And
and go
she
into
could still purchase a home in just under her name alone.
I highly recommend it going that route. And you know what else I would recommend? I would recommend that I think your husband should first talk to a credit restoration company to
Mhm.
see if they have ideas because they deal with it every single day.
Yeah.
And,
Love it.
and they might be able to make some of that debt go away for him, which would then mean he could potentially avoid the chapter 13.
Yeah, and that's what I'm doing myself. And then I recommended it for him as well, and he's like, I think I'm too far gone. I'm like, well,
Well, it's worth it's worth
is
asking.
it right?
It's
Yeah, you're
definitely
right.
asking. Who do you need so you already have a company, a credit restoration company that
It's
you,
called Pyramid. They're out in New Jersey, I think.
okay. Do you want me to try and find another, or are you happy with what they've done?
So far, it's a process. I wouldn't mind more another recommendation.
Okay, let me
That
see if
way,
I can I'll
I
get
have one right here. I'll send it to you right now. I'll put it in
Oh,
the chat
perfect.
box in a second.
sounds
Perfect.
great. I do appreciate you guys' time.
No,
I know it's past
absolutely.
7 already.
Don't worry about it. It's totally fine. Um,
It's called, let's see. Okay, there you are, Naomi. I'm going to type it in.
Thank you. Okay, yeah, I know.
All right, I just sent it to you in the chat box.
Thank you. I see
Um,
it.
they
National Care.
are they are a really good company. My customers love them. The ones that I've mentioned earlier have used that same company.
Okay.
I definitely think your husband should reach out to them too, just to see, because it doesn't hurt to ask. I mean, worst case scenario, they say, no, we can't help you. And then he can
Go further from there. We know what
right.
next
At
step.
least you know
Yeah.
where to stand. But if he can avoid filing, then, do it.
Yeah. And that was my fear. Like,
Yeah.
my goal is to in 2 years, like, to be honest, mine, I can see I can fix it.
Yeah.
Like, I have my car note and I have debt of less than $2,000,
Oh, that's,
not counting my car note.
yeah.
So I can see making payments on the other things, getting a credit card, and working my way. My thing is I haven't played the credit card game yet.
Right.
So I don't have no credit history. So that's another factor into this whole debacle. So
No, I mean, look, it's a process and
It's a roadmap.
exactly.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So,
But go
Naomi,
ahead.
here's what you want to do without having any established credit. You want to have a bank account with a bank checking account with Chase or Fifth Third, because
Okay.
both of those banks offer a secured credit card when you have a bank account with them.
I did not know that. Oh.
And if you know of another one, that's cool too. But typically, what they'll say is, if you have an account with them,
Mhm.
this is what a secured credit card does. You send them $500.
Oh, I see what
They
you're
will
saying.
give you a $500 limit, and then after about a year, they'll increase your limit from 500 to 1,000, but you still only have $500 in the kitty.
Mhm.
And then as time goes on, that credit limit increases, and therefore your credit score continues to go up.
Okay.
Just make sure
Yeah.
you're making your payments on time and you'll improve your credit.
Yeah. So yeah, I have heard about those secure credit cards where, I put a deposit down or like I put it down, but that's, I see how, and that's where I'm gonna have to start with.
Yeah.
But I do thank you both so much. I do have to go and get started
Alright.
for bedtime for these little ones.
No worries. Oh, hi, sweetie.
It was nice meeting you.
It was
You
really
too,
lovely.
You too. Thank you so much again. I do appreciate all your time and advice.
You're welcome. If you
Take
don't
care.
mind,
I
I'll
have
reach out for your feedback after the.
oh yes, definitely. If anything, I'll get it done before 9 o'clock.
Okay,
Or
thanks
after.
so much.
Thank
Take
you
care.
so
Have a good night.
Bye
You
bye.
too.
Thanks a
Bye-bye.
lot.
You're welcome. Bye. Good night.